nothing seems to have changed within the UFO community, except there's a lot of bitter fighting between the UFO groups. Why is this?
Well, we seem to have some individuals here and there, and I think it doesn't matter whether you're a celebrity in Hollywood, whether you're a police officer, a fireman, and they're all vying for higher and higher positions. You want to be chief, you want to be captain, you want to have the top secret, you want to be the grand poobah of all.
Yeah, well, let me just interject something here. I've been a police officer. I've worked criminal investigations. I've worked patrol. I've worked narcotics. I've worked warrants. One thing the police force does that ufology doesn't is share information.
You're exactly right. What is so difficult there is a police officer. Well, I worked for the federal government.
Right.
They did not want me working on the side in UFO investigations.
Why not?
I don't know why the police officers. Well, here, if I call a police department or I call a fire department and say I'd like to leave my name and/or a card or my website. Yeah. So that if you get a call from someone saying they've seen a UFO, you don't have to deal with it. I'll take the case, give them my information. They don't want to do it.
No. What I meant by that was that all the information pertaining to crime and intelligence that could be used by law enforcement is put into a central data bank
I see.
that law enforcement agencies have access to in the United States. I believe it's the NCIC, National Crime Intelligence Center, or Information Center. Here in Canada, it's CPIC, Canadian Police Information Center, as well as sharing the information within agencies within the United States. Our computers talk to each other, and they share the information. So I've often wondered why this type of technology, which is accessible to everybody now, isn't used when it comes to the investigation of UFOs and related events, including alien abductions.
I have an opinion.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay, I'm going to voice it somewhat.
Okay.
My opinion is that I believe that in many of the larger organizations, I don't know about the small ones,
right,
there are, quote, moles. And are those moles from our governments? And are they assisting and keeping some of this information back? Are they playing a game of move the puzzle pieces so that we get only so close in sharing the information and it's withdrawn? Are they convincing others in the organization not to disclose what they have? That's just my opinion.
I hear that, and I can understand the logic behind it. But looking at the big picture, doesn't the government of the United States and Canada and other countries have bigger and more important things to do than to waste manpower and resources on UFO communities and the citizens of their countries who pose no national security threat?
Not a national security threat, but what if this opened up Pandora's box that so many people could take a look at and say, oh my gosh, there's the secret to no longer driving cars with gasoline and cures medically and on so forth infinitum until what's that going to shut down?
But then we could go on to bigger and better things like taking care of the hungry, sheltering the homeless, making sure that everybody gets the proper education to go forward in life, to work on the research and the curing of diseases, making sure everyone has access to clean water, working on the environment. Like the list goes on and on. And something else I do not understand is that a lot of people within the UFO community believe that there's a lot of reverse engineering going on. And if this is the case, why would the government spend so much money in research in the space program if they already have the technology available? Why would the government spend so much money on the defense mechanism within the United States, and including the new top secret aircraft that are now being identified by many people as UFOs, if this technology already exists, it doesn't make sense to me.
That doesn't make any sense to me either, and I wish it did. And I can also tell you that back in 1969, if we want to switch for 1 second back to the cure for common cold and flu, I was so ill I was sent home to die.
Oh, gosh.
I had had major surgery. I had all kinds of things happen to me. They didn't know what the outcome was going to be. They sent me home to die. They said the last thing you need to do is catch the flu. My father-in-law at the time was a physician here in Florida. I was in Colorado. They pulled up some pills because the surgeon and the doctors in that private hospital didn't want me to fail over the flu. I took 6 pills. I no longer had the flu, which was, you name it, vomiting, stuffed nose, all the kinds of things, high fever. Those pills killed the flu in 2 hours.
Well, we all know that there's big money in big pharma, and that it's the pharmaceutical industry that runs the medical profession. So, I've always believed that the cure for cancer is somewhere on a shelf, because if it was given to the public, the pharmaceutical industry would start losing money left, right, and center. And I think the same thing is true when it comes to alternative fuels. Too many people make too much money, and unfortunately, the world that we live in is run on greed.
It is greed. It's absolute greed. And this business of what we're doing with our space programs, why are we and how are we pulling off this farce monetarily when it could be going to feed the starving people of the world is beyond me.
When you were taken in these alien abductions, how do you feel physically? Like, you said that you feel something is going to happen. Your guide, as I believe you called him, appears. Are you taken when you're outside? When you're inside? Are you transported to the craft in a beam of light that we see on Star Trek? How is it done?
The majority of the time that I have been taken, I have not been asleep. I have not been in my bed. Some of the time, yes, very few. Most of the time I am outside. The majority of the time I have either been in my car and had a feeling I needed to drive somewhere, be pulled over, or the whole car is just taken like it was and talks about in the book. And I had other people with me, my husband, my family, and other people waiting for me to arrive. And I was 3.5 hours late.
Have you ever been with anyone when you are abducted, or are you always alone?
No. Oh, I have been with one that we're working on right now to see if we can prove it somehow, and that'll possibly come out in the future. But and with my husband, he was hypnotized also by Kathleen, and he was only able to go so far, but we think we see him in a craft. If that's the case, he was there with me. If not, he was sitting in the car below the craft, waiting upon my return, and in one instance he saw me return by an entity and sat in the seat of the truck when I was brought back.
That sounds that sounds a lot like the Betty and Barney Hill case.
It's very close, but there are so many differences in there that you can't compare my husband seeing the craft because he didn't. He felt like he was in a dome, some other strange things that occurred.
How about some of the other cases that you're working on? The most convincing cases that you're working on, that when you discuss the case, as you do, I'm sure, when you go out and do lectures and seminars, how do you deal with the people who are skeptical when you discuss these cases?
That's difficult. All I can do with them is say, look, this is what I'm looking for. I want the most conscious memory first that I can possibly glean, and I go from there, and then I have markers that I use, as does Kathleen. I will not sit someone down and say, okay, we're going to use hypnosis, because that's not what you do. Kathleen and I have been sitting in the same room at a support group, and someone will say, okay, I need hypnosis. Are you willing to do that? We'll both say no at the same time. We need to start at point A, and we may never use hypnosis on that individual.
Why do you use hypnosis when the judicial system and other experts and scientists say it's not reliable?
And because things can be confabulated, they'll want to make something up to please the hypnotist, et cetera, et cetera. We have to be very, very careful. We may just want to fill in a tiny little blank space, or to clean up something they've already told us.
How about a lie detector test? Do you use?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the psychological stress evaluators, this PSE testing?
Now that we're not so sure of when it comes to something that's already caused so much stress, so much fear, post-traumatic syndrome. They've got all those evaluators going, and you're going to add a stress test to that? Doesn't work so well.
A PSE test is a lie detector test, except what it does is it monitors the FM frequencies in the voice that cannot be controlled to tell a lie.
Right.
So is Kathleen the only person who does the hypnotic regression for the people that you work with?
No, I'm a certified hypnotist for Florida.
So it's you?
And yes, we've both been trained recently in forensic regression.
Forensic regression? I've never heard of that before.
It's brand new, and it's through the Hypnosis Guild, and it's very, very special. We took the course last year.
Is it recognized by law enforcement and by the scientific and medical community?
No, if it's the Hypnotic Guild of America, it should be. It's very, very fascinating and has helped us a great deal in the past year.
All right, stand by, Denise. You and I have to take our final break. Exonation, Denise Stoner is my guest this hour. We're talking about the book that she wrote with Kathleen Marden entitled The Alien Abduction Files, the most startling cases of human alien contact ever reported. Her website is www.denisemstoner.com, and we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we wrap up this hour talking about alien abductions here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Roswell last night, we strolled along together in the pale moonlight. I had a funny feeling that something wasn't right. I made love to an alien last night. When she gripped my hand, I was feeling mighty fine, but her fingers with mine would not intertwine. When I bent down and gazed into her eyes.
With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. MATSTEIN.com.